Even if you've been on excursions before, excursions in Alaska are quite different. They can be very expensive. Last year, for the family of 4 of us, it sent our budget overboard. From bucket list items like glacier dog sled excursions by helicopter in Juneau to Misty Fjord sightseeing in Ketchikan, Alaska offers once-in-a-lifetime experiences for those looking for adventure where cost is no object. But for people like me and Noah and my family, it's nice to have a few budget-friendly items to mingle in. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'll be sharing those once-in-a-lifetime experiences, but also things you can do on the cheap in Juneau and Ketchikan and Skagway. For each of these towns, including Juneau, I'm going to be giving 3 options. 1, the sky's the limit. What is that expensive, once-in-a-lifetime excursion in each town? 2nd, the crowd's favorites, the things that most people do in each town. And then 3rd, I'm going to give some budget-friendly options. That way, let's just say in Juneau, you want to do the sky's the limit. And here's what it is. The sky's the limit is taking a helicopter to a glacier and then going dog sledding. That's the sky's the limit. It's like $715, but you won't ever forget that experience. Whale watching in Juneau is a favorite excursion, especially June through August, when they're so confident that you're going to see a whale that there's a guarantee or you'll get your money back. Here comes the teacher in me coming out. So I actually learned about bubble netting from teaching my students in 5th grade. But here's what they do. The whales, they work as a team and they blow bubbles. And what happens is the fish, like herring, all these little fish, they get all confused and they don't think I can get out of those bubbles. So it works like a net to trap them. Then when they have enough fish, this collar will make a sound, woo, and all the fish swim up through the center of the net and eat. And when they pop up, it looks like this. And the way you know that they're going to come up is that all the birds are waiting overhead and they can see what's going on when you can't. To swoop in and get the leftovers. Last year, we didn't get our money back. We saw over 23 whales. In addition to going whale watching, the other big thing to do in Juneau can be very budget friendly. In fact, going to the visitor center just costs $5. Just have to get the transportation to get there. No visit to Juneau is complete without a close-up look at this Mendenhall Glacier, Alaska's most famous and most visited glacier. The cheapest way to get to the glacier is to take the local Capital Transit bus for just $2 US each way per person at the time of this recording. You'll need exact change because the drivers, they don't carry any cash. But there's a couple things you need to know. 1, it's an hour-long bus ride each way, so you got to budget in 2 hours for that. If you go by like a guide tour, it's only a half an hour each way. And then 2nd, there is a 1.5 mile walk from where the bus drops you off to the visitor center. When going to Mendenhall Glacier, you might want to pack a few cookies. From the Mendenhall Glacier, there's a trail that leads about 1 mile from the Glacier Visitor Center to the falls. Nugget Falls it's a relatively easy walk, and it's suitable for families with children. And you'll hear those falls before you ever see them. If you're like me and you're like, this is great, $2 to get to the glacier, that's awesome. The one thing you need to keep in mind is this is the public transportation that the people in Juneau use to get to work, to get to their doctor's appointment, to get around town. I plan on picking times that won't be right like at rush hour time. That way, I'm not taking a seat from a local that needs to get to work. You may be thinking, Christy, I do not want to walk a half an hour from the bus stop to the glacier. I do not want to be on a public bus for an hour each way. I get it. So how else can you get there? One way is you book through your cruise line, and it runs about $69.95, and that includes like along the way, they give you some guided tour talk. And then they do drop you right in front of the visitor center. The other way is they do have stands along when you get off the cruise ship. They have lots of like booths. You can also get a ticket that way. You can also go online and look at the big blue bus and you can get a ticket that way. I think a really good way to do it, if you are interested in doing both, going both whale watching and going to the Mendenhall Glacier is the cruise lines offer that as a package. So they take you to both. They take you to whale watching, they take you to the Mendenhall Glacier, and that was $244. The whale watching itself was $204. Adding the glacier is only $40 more. So to me, that actually is a pretty good price. You've gone whale watching, you've gone to the glacier. If I were you, I'd go back to the ship and have a drink and take a little break. Maybe get another cookie. Cookie overboard. All right. You can have this one. Anyways, the next thing. So go back out and you could go on the Gold Belt Tram. Now this goes up Mount Roberts to the top, and then you get these gorgeous views of the cruise ship and the port from way above on top of Mount Roberts. Juneau and Skagway and Ketchikan, they're all going to have great hikes. They're all going to be different with different foliage. So that is always something that you can do at any of the stops, and those are free. You can get the trail, like a trail map from the visitor center. And, it makes me want to go back to Alaska to spend more time. I talked to the woman from the visitor center in Juneau, and she says, make sure you tell people, come back to Alaska and hang out for more than just your day trip off of your cruise ship. If you don't want to go hiking, you could also go to the Juneau Douglas City Museum. This museum touches on all things Juneau and costs $7 for ages 13 and older, $6 for seniors, and free for children 12 and below. For free, you could go to the Alaska State Capitol building, since Juneau is Alaska State Capitol. And then finally, you can get a map that looks like this. You can even download it before you go, and it has many of the points of interest. You could just do your little walking tour. Just so you know, this is where the cruise ships that we have been on, they dock. So you can see how close we are to that tram. And really, it's not a very big town. So it's kind of a fun one to explore on your own. Ketchikan is our next stop. And it is the salmon capital of the world. It's self-proclaimed salmon capital of the world. Also super rainy. It is a rainforest. So when we went there last year, though, I hope that we have the same weather this year. Last year, it was so hot that the locals were wearing like tank tops and shorts. I wish I had packed some lighter clothing. That is one thing, a tip. No matter where you're going in Alaska on your excursions, make sure you have layers so you're ready for that. Ketchikan grew around three big things. One, the indigenous people of the area. Two, the gold rush era. Even though the gold wasn't found in Ketchikan, the supplies came in through Ketchikan and then went off to the gold fields. And then three, there's a thriving fish industry. The sky's the limit excursion option for Ketchikan is to go on an Alaska bear adventure and flight. It'll run you around $700. And they take you to the Tongass National Forest, where you get to watch bears in their natural habitat feeding on the salmon runs. You fly to Traders Cove in the Tongass National Forest, and you walk on a trail, and you get a view of bears from a viewing platform. To me, that sounds like the ultimate Alaska excursion. You have bears, you have a float plane, you have fish. It sounds awesome. One of the crowd favorites is to go on the deadliest catch crab tour. You take one of the boats that went out in the Bering Sea to catch crab, and they tell you all about the experience, and you get to see they have like big lobster pots that they put over and they bring them on board, and you get to see all the animals that they collect in there. It sounds like a great adventure. It's one of the things that we're going to do this year when we go to Ketchikan. Another crowd favorite in Ketchikan is to go to the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show. In this show, there's two teams. There's the Canadian team and the American team. They get the crowd all riled up as they root for their team, as they do all these great, like they climb up these huge poles and they do that log rolling thing and they throw the axes. I want to throw the axe. That's a really fun way to spend some time in Ketchikan. You can pick up one of these Ketchikan walking tour maps at the visitor center, and it points out and helps you find the different places in the town. It's not a very big town. The most popular area to go to is this Creek Street, which is a beautiful area. This is Dolly House. This was once all the way until like 1950 was like a house of women of ill repute. And they actually have a museum in there. And this creek sometimes would have salmon running in it. The next thing is, again, every town you can go on a hike. So this is the Rainbird Trail. It's free to go on. And it's about 20 minutes from the cruise dock. And it's a 2.6-mile pathway that you can go through the Alaskan rainforest, which is pretty neat. Then you have the Southeast Alaska Discovery Center, which is just $5 for people over 15. So 15 and under are free. And this is a great DIY with an aquarium that has a salmon observation exhibit. So that would be a fun, like, bonus thing to add to your list of Ketchikan. Finally, the last thing you might do is what we did on our last trip, and that was to go to the Totem Bight State Historical Park. It cost $5 per person, and it has 14 authentic totem poles and a tribal house on the water's edge. It was beautiful. It's 10 miles from downtown, so you have to get there. And the way we did it last year is we did take the public bus for just $2 each way, and the bus takes about a half an hour. Just like with Juneau, you'll want to be mindful of the locals, though. For us, the bus was not full, and the locals were great. They're super proud of their town, and they were really chatty. So actually, I really enjoyed that opportunity to just meet some of the locals by being on the bus. Before we go on to Skagway, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. When you think of the gold rush in Alaska and you think of the Yukon, that's when you think of Skagway. So that is really all the history of Skagway is tied to the gold rush. People would come to Skagway, they'd gear up, and it took a lot of gear. Otherwise, the Canadians would not let them go to the Yukon because they knew they're just going to go and die. So they would go to the gold fields in the Yukon through Skagway. You're in Skagway, and now what is the sky's the limit option? Sky's the limit options in Skagway are pretty much the same as what you would do in Juneau. They have float planes that you can fly over the glaciers, and they also have helicopter tours that can take you up to the glacier, and they have the dog sledding. The most common options and the most popular things to do in Skagway include the White Pass Railway. People would come to Skagway, and they would want to get through the White Pass. Once this railway was built, it was much better because people had to carry all the stuff on their packs to get through this path, which was very dangerous. So that is a great train, so beautiful, so scenic, so fresh. The air just smells so fresh. And then also you can go on to the Mushers Camp. So the Mushers Camp, this is a summer camp. And so you're not up on a glacier with snow. They pull you on these rigs that they make. And you get to meet they're not all huskies. So they actually are a variety of dogs that pull them. So the dogs that pull the sled. Just like in Ketchikan and Juneau, there's always great places to hike in Alaska. And one of them is this Yucatania Point, which is a really easy hike. Another hike you can go on really barely counts as a hike. You're mostly on pavement, and then you go off a little bit to come up to see this waterfall. And it really is a beautiful way, without a formal tour, to get to see some of the nature around Skagway. Watching the Days of 98 show, I would count as one of the most historic thing to do in Skagway. It's just $20 a person for a daytime show and $22 for the evening show. You're 12 and under, and you're half price. And it's one of the longest running attractions in Skagway. Skagway is filled with small museums depicting the gold rush life. So if you go there, you can get a free map from the visitor center, and the map goes through and talks about all the different buildings throughout the town. While you're walking around the town, checking out the museums, there's so much to see. Skagway is I think, was a super interesting town. You might want to stop and get a Klondike Doughboy. It's like a fry bread with cinnamon sugar, kind of like a funnel cake. Yum. So we're definitely doing that this year. I don't know how we missed it last year. Now that you've got yourself all sugared up, Your last stop could be the Pulling Creek. So the Pulling Creek, you're going to see the salmon running in the creek. And that's usually like end of June, July, and August. You're going to see other animals there oftentimes because they come to feed on the salmon. So lots of bald eagles are in Alaska. Like you'll see more bald eagles than you ever thought possible. And you could even see a bear. Last year on our trip to Alaska, we went in Juneau to the Mendenhall Glacier, but we didn't go to the glacier. We went on a viewing nature walk, which was combined with whale watching. That's why this year I want to get up close to the Mendenhall Glacier. And we're going to go by city bus. We're going to be sure to bring some
cookies. Where are they?
Then after going on that, because it's going to take a while, we're going to go back to the ship, take a break, and get something to eat. And then, then we'll head back out on the Gold Belt tram and finally end up with a self-guided tour of the city. Last year in Ketchikan, we went to the Totem Bite Historical Park by the city bus, and then we went to the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show, and we did a tour, like a little walk through the town and went to the Creek Street. This year, we're going to go on the Deadliest Catch Crab Fisherman Tour. We're going to go back to the ship for a bite and a break. And then we're going to go at the end, we're going to go to the Southeast Alaska Discovery Center and check that one out. Finally, in 2023, we did go on the White Pass Railway and we went to this Liars Camp, which was like it was a combined tour from the Holland America like excursion. And then we did do a self-guided tour of the town. This year, I do want to go on the railway again. This way we're going to go on a round trip. Last year was a one-way, so this year is round trip on the train. And the difference is last year when we were on the train, I was outside most of the time, so I didn't get to really hear the history of it. This year I'm going to spend more time inside, even though it is gorgeous outside. Then we're going to go back to the ship for another bite and a break. So one thing I found last year is we kind of tired ourselves out because we didn't like take a break. We just kept going. So I think going back to the ship, because the ships are close by to all of these ports. Then we're going to we're going to hike to the Lower Reed Falls. Then we'll walk around the town with a map and, of course, stop and get one of those Klondike Doughboys for a treat. And then we're going to end our time there at the Pulling Creek to see the salmon run. Now that you know how to get your Alaskan excursions right, head over to this video where I talk about how to avoid mistakes on your Alaskan cruise. Happy sailing!